Hello, everybody. It's Stephen and Walter here for another episode of So Chatty. It's episode 189, and it is June the 13th. In fact, it is Friday the 13th. I just realized that now. But anyways, hopefully this will all go well because I've already had a bit of a week of trials and tribulations earlier. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But first of all, I'll show you what we've been up to. I think we'll talk about what Walter's been up to because we should have taken a picture of it. His sewing room. You can actually see the floor. Not all of it, but you can see a heck of a lot more.
Still not done yet, but...
And what made you want to do this suddenly?
Well, we're getting new windows, and although they're still gonna take 6 to 8 weeks to come, I had this big bookshelf that's right next to the window, or almost overlapping the window, and I got to clean that out because it needs to be gone for them to install the window.
You're also gonna have to move your sewing machine out of the way.
Yeah, I will. That won't be too difficult.
Well, I guess you just move the sewing machine. You don't have to worry about the table it's on.
No, I can take that top off the table.
Yeah,
it's on there loose. I can just remove it.
So that inspired Walter to clean up his sewing room, and he gave me a bunch of bags of scraps from shirts, and they're decent scraps. So I put them in a drawer, and I'll promptly forget that I have them. So just transferring one person's junk to another person to junk.
Well, and then I cleaned out some of the closet. There was some junk in that. I
find Jimmy Hoffa's body.
Pretty much. Yep. We have a couple of sleeping bags we never use.
Oh God, they're ancient.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So, and then, the minute you throw those out, you'll want them for something.
I don't want to ever get in a sleeping bag again. I don't like feeling strangled in them.
So anyway, so I've been going through my drawers and I've been cleaning out stuff and I've been getting rid of stuff that I'm not going to use. And
so you heard it here first, folks. Walter went through his drawers.
I've got more drawers to go, and I got rid of some electronics that I don't use anymore.
Ooh, you mean modern antiques?
Yeah.
Things like that.
And
like a CD changer.
I got to go through all my drawers downstairs here too because I got stuff in them they got to get rid of.
Well, anyway, so yeah, that's what he's been up to. I've been up to a few things. So Barn Star Sampler. I'm going to talk more about this on Idiot Quilter next week in a little bit more detail, but I'm going to show you what it looks like on our bed right now. And here we go. It's the one on the bed, not the one hanging on the wall. That's the Barn Star Sampler. Now, it's long enough to go, like, as you can see, it covers the foot of the bed. The sides are still a little on the short. They don't really drape down to the floor, but it looks okay. Biggest quilt I have ever made. I'm not sure exactly what the dimensions are, but I think it's something like...
bigger than the one that's hanging behind you?
Well, actually, maybe they're about the same size. But anyways, I had some fun on Lucy with it. It certainly came to the limit of Lucy for size because Lucy is what, a 12-foot frame?
Yeah.
A 12.
No, it's not 12.
Or it's 10.
It's 10.
It's 10 foot. Yeah. So yeah, the width.
See, now you wish you had the 12.
You just keep nagging me about that, don't you? No, I don't. But the problem I had, and I'll talk about it in more detail with the Idiot Quilter, was basically in the way that I was rolling the quilt when it was finished, a zone, and then moving it ahead. And I kind of got it a little too thick and it wouldn't go under the arm of the needle, but it should have. I have a 26-inch throat on Lucy. And Walter was a great deal of help with it too. As I was cursing and swearing,
I said you started it too close to the top.
And he told me I was an idiot and he'd asked some other things and whatnot. It's not really what you want to hear when you're frustrated. Anyways, I got it finished. I got it figured out. It wasn't ideal, but I will talk about that on Idiot Quilter. I'm not going to talk about it today because what's there to look forward to on Idiot Quilter then? Okay, other things. Well, I started another quilt. I started a Quilt of Valor. This one is called, what's this one called? Across the Nation. is the pattern for this. It's an official Quilts of Valor, Canadian Quilts of Valor pattern. Found one mistake in the pattern, but it was a minor one, but they wanted me to attach two pieces together that were not the same size. And there aren't any Y seams in this, so I figured that out pretty quickly. There are 6 different blocks in this, various numbers in each. Most of them have 4 blocks, but the one you see in the middle there, the tulip block, it has 5 for whatever reason. I don't know. When it goes together, I guess there's a reason for it. Oh no, and the block you see up in the one right-hand corner up there, there's 8 of those to make. And so that's what I'm working on now. But they're coming along pretty good. And yeah, not that much more. Well, there is quite a bit more to go, but then we'll get it done. And it's a type of sampler as well. So I've been working on that. And then for a little bit of a break, and because we're going off to visit some friends in the middle of next month, I thought I'd take them a little gift. So I made this Christmas table runner. Now, it is busy. It is very busy. Okay. Partly because of the fabric that I used in it. They had this, it was an in the hoop machine embroidery. There's 4 tiles. They call it Santa's Workshop. And they did it on black fabric too. And the colors are not the colors. I stuck to what they suggested for colors. Not the colors I would have probably have used, like the blue. I think the blue is supposed to be sort of like snow. I think I would have rather have used, in hindsight, maybe a more silver for that kind of thing, a lighter silver. The shades of green in it, they were really playing on the red and the green, of course. They're okay. I don't know. But anyways, I stuck to what they had. The more I look at it, the more it kind of grows on you. It has a certain amount of elegance to it with that gold black fabric that's there. It sort of suggests that, Santa and his elves are in the workshop working mildly and there's a snowstorm going on outside. The whirling wind and things like that. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. But it'll be fine. It'll probably fit their decor because they're kind of into, let's see, old man chic, Victorian elegance, because one of the two of them does collect Victorian glasswork and stuff like that. And so I think it'll actually go very nicely in their condo with the way they have it furbished and everything. So yeah, I'm giving it to them because, well, they're taking us out for dinner. And they're taking us out to what we think is probably a fairly expensive restaurant from what we've heard in Toronto. And kind of as a to pay me back for the different things I've made. Like I've given them a couple of quilts. I think I gave them I may have even given them a table runner at one time before it was matching table napkins and stuff. But they're quilt worthy people. So that's in fact the very first quilt I ever made for them. They want to commission me to make it, and I said, you're friends, I'll just make you. And I knew exactly what kind of color scheme they would like and everything because we know them so well. So, and I had the perfect fabric for that. That's quite a while ago now. I think that was pre-COVID. I had just basically just gotten into quilting. I hadn't been quilting that long, and that quilt turned out very nice. It was a pattern, but they liked that. Then I had another one that I had made here when they were over again about a year or so ago, and as soon as I had made that quilt, I knew it had their name on it because it was perfect for their style. So anyways, that's what they're doing for us, but I can't go empty-handed. So taking them this table runner. I was thinking of maybe making some matching napkins to go with it. But I don't think I have I was thinking of making them out of that darker fabric with the gold in it, but I don't think I have enough of it to make napkins. And I don't know, I was even thinking of doing cut work, freestanding lace on the napkins where you basically cut out a corner and do the standing lace. I've done those before. They take a while to do. and they can be a little tricky as well. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I've got lots of projects to keep me off the streets. I mean, I still have 2 more quilts that need to be quilted, too. One is, if you remember back, the one that I designed and got it all sewn together, and I had put 1 block in each corner the wrong way. And so instead of it becoming, what was I calling it, stars and windmills, it was going to be, well, boats and stars, because it looked like a boat on the one corner. Well, I just redid that whole quilt. But I have the one that I rejected, perfectly good quilt. It just needs to be quilted. And then I've got an uglier quilt that's a scrap quilt. I just made it up. It's made up of orphan blocks and stuff. It's not really ugly, but it's not really thrilling either. And then I just slapped those all together, and I'll get that quilted, and I'm going to give it to our niece, to Karen, for her dog Freddie. Because I don't know if Freddie ever did get a dog bed quilt. I made him one 2 years ago or something, and I made Karen a quilt at the same time and said, you know,
you maybe have used that one up.
Well, maybe he's a big dog. I mean, yeah. Queued it up. I don't know if she let him, because I said, yeah, the ugly one is for Freddie. And I don't know if I should have been flattered or insulted, because she said, I'm not sure which one was ugly. Okay. I think she meant it in a nice way. I don't think she meant it in the negative way. I think what she meant was she liked both of the quilts, and, the hell with the dog. Poor Freddie. I made it for Freddie, so make him another one. But anyways, and maybe I can work out the bugs with my Lucy when I do that. And it's not Lucy, it's me. Thank you for your support. It's so ongoing all the time. I can trust you for that all the way. Okay, moving on here. Announcements. Sewing with Stephen, as usual, Wednesdays, 9 a.m. start time, Eastern Standard Time, done at 4. We've had a few new people join us. And some of the older people, or some of us we had regularly, I haven't seen in a bit. Is it something I said? I don't know. It makes me also wonder, should I be doing these? You tell me. When I first started the sew days on Wednesdays and my pop-up sew days, we had a fairly good turnout regularly. I don't know if it's the time of the year, maybe, or people are just getting so busy. Or is there something that I'm not offering that people, they're just bored with me? I don't know. You tell me. Because the whole point of doing them was to give people an outlet to come together and do some sewing and socializing, the whole bit. And if that is not of an interest anymore, quite frankly, why am I wasting my time for it? I mean, we have our regular core, and I do appreciate those people who come out all the time. We have a good time. We're not really acquaintances anymore. We're probably pretty much friends, even though most of us have never seen each other except on Zoom. But I don't know. You tell me about it. Is there something that you don't like about doing these kind of things, or is there something I should be doing that would be more up your alley? I don't know. So anyways, let me know. Speaking of events, pop-up sew day, Saturday, June the 21st, people. I have mentioned this before, and I had somebody send me an email yesterday going, in a panic, I didn't get the email with the Zoom link in it for the pop-up sew day. That's because I haven't sent it out yet. Because the pop-up sew day is not until a week from this Saturday, June the 21st. And the only thing I'm thinking is I'm having another pop-up sew day, but in July, on July the 12th. And maybe they were getting their dates mixed up, thinking June 12th instead of June 21st or whatever. I don't know. But next week, you'll find in the show notes for everything I put up next week, and in Stephen and Walter Live this Sunday, there'll be the link for the pop-up sew day on June the 21st, which is 1 week from tomorrow. Today's the 13th, tomorrow's the 14th, 7 days from the 14th is the 21st. It's on June the 21st. And as I already mentioned, my birthday bash pop-up sew day, July the 12th. That's July. That one is a special one because we have prizes. And right now I'm experimenting with several different random name generator programs to work with Zoom. Not easy. I wish Zoom would come up with, and I'm not the only person. I've seen lots of people have said the same about Zoom and have written to Zoom, and Zoom says, yeah, well, we might work on that. And some of these messages go back to when Zoom first got started. Like a random name picker from, the people that are logged on, because there is no other way to do it in Zoom. They need to create one. And the one I found is a third-party program, and it's a freebie, but it's a little cumbersome. So I don't know. Anyways, yeah. Get on with that. If anybody here works for Zoom, get on with that. We need it. We want it. Okay. So, I made a little mistake on this week's Idiot Quilter. Didn't know it until one of the ladies, or a couple of the ladies on Wednesday, told me about it. I had promised that I was going to show you the footage I took at Rhonda's big sale last weekend. Well, all I managed to put into it was the last part of us coming home. I didn't realize I didn't get the rest of it. I thought the whole thing was there. So if you went on before Wednesday and watched Idiot Quilter episode, it was missing from that. I have gone in and I have added it, and now there's the new version. So it's there. So if you want to go back, you can skip ahead to find that section. It runs about 3 minutes long, I think 3 or 4 minutes long, if you're interested. But it's there now. These things happen. I wasn't having a good beginning of the week between Lucy and then doing that video and whatnot. Things were just, one of those kind of things that happens every now and then. Okay, so then the other problem we had was, what were we going to talk about on So Chatty this week? I'm not getting a whole lot of suggestions from the audience. You people are dropping the ball with me. Again, is it something I said? Do you not love me anymore? Do you hate me? Is my but no, so I know we keep saying we're going to do the bag. Problem is, Walter's people are not scheduling with my people for all of this. He's been busy. He's been busy getting this crap out of his room. He's been busy looking into the windows, new windows, which, by the way, we are getting new windows and that, or more new windows. And we'll talk about that on the live on Sunday, probably. So, yeah. And I'm still not sure how we're going to go about this on the bag, but we have to coordinate our time.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't just take like 5 minutes. It's going to take us a bit of time. So anyways, that's why you're not seeing it yet. Now, next week on So Chatty, hopefully all goes well, we're going to the Canadian Quilt Show on Thursday next week. So I should have, and I'm going to take footage, so I should have a fair amount of footage. In fact, probably the whole thing of So Chatty next week will be the Canadian Quilt Show. So stay tuned for that, as long as my technology cooperates with all of that. So that's on the books. But we need more ideas of what you would like to see. And as I've said many times before, there's no such thing as a stupid idea. Even if it's something we think we can't handle, it may give us another idea for something we can. So it inspires us. So we do need that, because quite frankly, I'm starting to run out of stuff. We've done a lot of different topics on here. So this week, I thought I had several people write me fairly extensive emails asking some questions about things. And I thought, well, I answered them, but I thought maybe everybody else would be kind of interested in this stuff too, because these were interesting multi-part questions. So that's why we've called it You Asked, We Answered. So I've pulled up those questions. Plus, I went through some of the comments on various videos and thought, well, yeah, these are some issues that might be addressed as well. So that's what we're going to do today. So the first one comes from a relatively new subscriber to my channel, and she's also new to our sew days on Wednesdays, Caroline. She is lives in my province. She lives about hour and a half, 2 hours away from us, sort of northwest of us. And she wrote this: I was watching your video this morning while reluctantly walking on the treadmill, and I had an idea and I thought I would send it to you before I forget. Have you ever done a So Chatty that discusses why you chose to purchase a Lucy from APQS? I've been tossing around the idea of purchasing a long arm, and I'm not sure if I want to spend so much money on one, and if I do, which one is the right one? I'm sure if I'm thinking about it, there will be others. I know Karen Brown from Just Get It Done Quilts also purchased one of the APQS long arms as well. I think Canadians might purchase the APQS for the lifetime warranty. I notice other manufacturers aren't offering that level of warranty. Would you buy the same machine again? What would you change about it? Anyway, just thought I'd ask. Okay, Caroline, you've asked a lot of questions here, and we have done several different videos, but not in a while, about Lucy. And I think we did do one about buying Lucy and the ins and outs of buying an APQS. But for people who are new here, or people who forgot, or maybe at the time you weren't interested in a long arm, maybe you are now, maybe you bought a long arm, and and I hope it's going well for you, because this is the first thing people think. Everybody wants a long arm, okay? Because we have in our mind, and I was one of those people too, that well, it's going to make quilting so much easier, and the machine practically does it on its own, especially if you have a computerized system like I do on mine, QuiltPath, and you just set it and forget it. No, no, you do not just set it and forget it. No, Lucy and I have come to loggerheads many times before. And part of the problem is Lucy, part of the problem is the operator, me. But it's a combination. So right off the bat, I want to just say in general, if you're thinking of buying a long arm, test them, try them out. It's not necessarily going to make your life easier. Okay. It can in some ways. I mean, you have a larger throat, bigger space.
You do like it for sandwiching the quilt.
Oh yeah,
and stuff like
yeah,
that.
that's second to none. Like when you're making your quilt sandwich and that on the long arm, still takes a little time, but it's so much easier than trying to do that and force everything under your domestic machine arm. But specifically to Carolyn's question, she's asking why we chose to purchase Lucy from APQS. Well, APQS is the American Production.
I'm not sure what it stands for.
I forget what it stands for. But anyways, it is an American company.
In fact, most long arm machines are American companies.
In fact, I don't know any that are Canadian.
And I don't know that there's any made in any other country. Except for possibly Bernina's, but...
Yeah, don't know about that. But anyways, APQS is a very large company, but their machines, their claim to fame is, first of all, it's all American made, and they make them by hand. They don't come off an assembly line. I mean, the parts are probably machine milled or whatever, but they assemble them and test them out in their factory before they send them out. They have very high quality assurance and quality control on their machines. They also have very good customer service, and I bought my machine, as did Karen Brown, because Karen Brown of Just Get It Done Quilts, she bought her APQS machine from a place in the town next door to us, and Tracy of Whirls N Swirls, she has a YouTube channel. Look up Whirls N Swirls. The N is with the letter N in it, and she is an excellent representative of the company. She's also a trained technician. She can fix the machines as well. And because she's right here, no better place to buy one, because ideally you want to have servicing that's close to you in the area. Because if you have to have your machine majorly serviced, and if your service company is 2 states or 3 provinces away, it's going to cost you a lot of money. Now, the thing is, your problem is going to be in the head of the machine where the needle and everything is. The rest of it is all mechanical. But if you've got to ship that out, that's going to cost you a lot of money.
And the machines are very heavy.
Yeah. Now, in some cases, they might send someone out that's a technician to you, but you're going to be paying for that as well.
APQS stands for American Professional Quilting Systems.
Oh, okay. American Professional Quilting Systems. So that was one reason why we settled on an APQS machine.
Plus, we had looked at previously. We had looked at the smaller versions of machines, like a lot of like the QD frame and
Janome had
frames and stuff like that. And for even buying that, it's less expensive. But when you have the smaller frames, you have to shift your quilt around, and we didn't think that if we're gonna do this, it was worthwhile.
You got to do it right.
Right. Now, the other one you could get was the lady that owns the shop, Ultimate Sewing, sells Janome machines, and Janome has a version of a quilt machine as well, and it was actually a little cheaper, but it wasn't as sturdy as the APQS.
Yeah.
And the quilt shops don't always support them as well. Now, we have since found out that the Janome brand is actually a handy quilter.
Yeah.
So handy quilter is another one that you may be able to find dealer of locally as well, but they're commercial machines that are I think they're manufactured. They're not like handmade like the APQS is. And they do not have a lifetime warranty, and we have heard of people having problems with them.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess the first thing is look to see where the closest dealer for the machines you're looking at is located, and then see how they treat you when you go in.
Like there's another lady on this channel that lives in Ottawa, and she recently bought an Novus one.
Yeah.
And there is an Novus dealership out in the London area, I think.
Yeah, that's where she got it.
In Ontario. So that is an option to look at as well. So,
and she loves her machine, and she has contacts with someone who can service it, and well, where she bought it in London. Now, London is 6 hours from Ottawa, 5 hours from Ottawa for her, so it's a bit of a hike if anything goes wrong. But
I mean, I don't know if she had an APQS dealer close by either. I think Tracy was the closest.
Yeah, one. I think Tracy.
So that's 4 hours away. So.
That's 4 hours away. But the thing too about long arms, there's not that much to them. If you keep it cleaned and you keep it lubricated according to manufacturer's instructions and that kind of stuff, you shouldn't have much of a problem with it. It's like your domestic sewing machine. Actually, it's less sophisticated than your domestic sewing machine.
It also helps that the dealer that we have, the APQS dealer, is close by here in case you have a problem with stuff.
I already said that.
Or it could be something simple like Steve had a problem with the thread not going through properly, and went over there, and she immediately realized what the problem was.
And then actually the problem wasn't the machine. The problem was the spool of thread that I bought. It hadn't been wound on the spool correctly.
Properly, yeah.
And as soon as we put in another spool of thread, it was fine. But I thought it was a problem with the machine. I thought it was a problem with the way I threaded it and that kind of stuff. Although I checked and triple checked and was sure I had it threaded properly. And yeah, she took one look at the spool of thread and said, "This isn't right."
I mean, you only have a few choices for long arm machines. There's a list of them, but here the only ones that we seem to run through is there's Gamel, there's Innovus, there's APQS. You can get a Bernina.
There's Berninas.
There's Handy Quilter. And there's a few other ones, but that's the only ones that I know of in the Ontario area. And Gamels are quite a bit more expensive than APQS.
Yes.
And so because we had the APQS dealer close by.
That's why we bought it.
Right? That's why we bought it. Plus you had rented time on the
Yes,
APQS
I had
before.
tried them out because I when I first got into quilting, I could go down, I took a course with Tracy. She runs a course so you're certified to use her machines. And I think most places where if you rent a long arm, that's what they make you do. So, so you don't hurt yourself, you don't hurt the machine, and you don't hurt your quilt. And then I'd rent time. I think at the time, I'm not sure if it's the same price, but it was $30 an hour. So basically, you're going to be there depending on the size of your quilt and everything. It was working out for me. It was cost me about $90. I was there about 3 hours to do that. And she was right there if there was any problems to troubleshoot for you in the whole bit. So, that's one way to try out a machine before you buy it, to see if you're going to like this or not. Rent the time. The other thing about, like, the other question here is, talked about lifetime warranty. Now, she asked, would you buy the same machine again? Yes. Now, APQS machines come in various sizes, and they're named. Lucy's 26 inches.
Yeah, see, actually, when we were looking at them, we had been following for a while, looking at the prices on APQS. And at the time Steve bought the Lucy, they had a sale on.
Yeah.
So it was a few $1,000s less than what the actual normal selling price is.
Yeah. So before you cut in there, would you buy the same machine again? Yes, I would, but as I said, they come in various sizes. I have a Lucy, and the sizes are geared towards how much throat space you have. I have 26 inches of throat space. Next one up is the Millie. It has...
No, Freddie's the next one.
Is Freddie the next one up?
Yeah, the Freddie and the Millie are almost exactly the same.
Well, how big's Freddie?
Freddie's 26 inches, Millie's 26 inches, and then they have a special Millie that's 31 inches.
Yeah, 31 inches. Now, the difference between, like, the Freddie and mine both have the same throat space. Freddie has some computerized components on it for locking your channels. Channels is basically just keeping your head either in a vertical or horizontal position. I think
Freddie doesn't necessarily have that. I think the Millie has that. But
okay, so what's the difference between Freddie and
I can't remember what the difference is, but anyway.
Do they still make Freddie?
Yeah, they still make Freddie.
Okay. Anyways.
There wasn't a lot of difference. I don't think they sell a lot of the Freddies, but because there's the difference in price isn't that big between a Freddie and a Millie. And a Millie has more features.
Yeah. Millie has more features on it. Also, there's different styles of the track that it's on. We got the Bliss track, which is the upper model. Basically, what is the difference?
Well, actually, Lucy comes, at the time we purchased it, Lucy came with a standard table, right? Yeah. Which is not as nice as the upgraded table, right? So when we bought the one for, the part of the sale for Lucy at the time was it came with the upgraded table and it came with the motorized advance.
Yeah.
And which are all quite expensive extras. And for an additional $1,000, we added this Bliss track, which supposedly makes the machine move a little easier.
Like you can take your finger and your
a lot of the additions to these machines, you'll look at the machine and you have this big sewing machine with the big throat, and then you've got the table that has to go on, and all that. If you really look at it, it is very expensive.
It's very expensive.
And you've got the one below Lucy is called a Lenny, and the Lenny has a 20-inch throat. Yeah, 6 inches less. And
size matters.
And the throat size is, 26 inches sounds like a lot, but you have to understand that your throat, the rollers have to go under your throat as well, so it's not just quilting space. You have less quilting space.
The longer your quilt, as you wind it, the less throat space you have with it. So if you're only dealing with one that's got, say, 20-inch throat as opposed to the 26, you can't do as many rows at a time. So what you're doing is you're advancing the quilt more often. Now, Walter just mentioned that the lower models of the tables and that they have a manual advance. It means basically you take your clamps off the sides that hold it there.
No, they all have manual advance. You have to get the optional motor on any table.
Yeah.
No, the motor is optional no matter what table you buy.
I know.
You know it didn't. You said made it sound like it came with the advance. The difference between
it comes with a manual advance.
Yeah, so did yours. Yours came with a manual advance too.
Yeah. But if you upgrade to the automatic advance, to the electric advance, that's what I'm saying. You start at this level, but we went up this level.
No, it came with it as in a package.
Yes, it did. But you don't have to buy it.
No, you don't. You don't have to buy it.
And that keeps the price cheaper.
Yeah, I know. On your loose.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay. But anyway, the Lenny is a 20-inch table, and it comes with the normal standard table. And the reason it comes with the standard table is that the rollers are skinnier on the Lenny, and because you have a skinnier throat, it doesn't take us. You'll have at least some quilting space there.
Well, you kind of have to have some quilting space or you can't quilt, can you? But what I was saying before he turned this whole thing around to some other topic on it is that if you are going in and you're cutting corners to get a long arm, there are features that you will be sorry you didn't get. And in the long run, this is a major investment. So get the best machine you can possibly afford. And having the motorized advance is good. I would never, ever not have the motorized advance on the machine because quilts get heavy. And as you're rolling it on there, and if you've got problems with your upper arms and your wrists and stuff, well, you're going to find that you're going to have some help rolling it. Also, the bigger throat space, the better, because the less number of times you need to advance the quilt, and that eats up time. So if you get one of those grace frames, and I'm sorry, I know some people have them, and if they love them and they're working for what they're doing, that is fine. For me, I think they're a piece of crap because we've seen them. The whole way that you attach a quilt to it is Mickey Mouse. The advancement is Mickey Mouse. You're using your domestic sewing machine on it. So domestic sewing machines do not have a big throat space. I mean, I think the biggest throat space you can get might be 14 inches on a domestic sewing machine. And unless you're going to buy a separate sewing machine that you're going to dedicate to your grace frame, you're going to have to be putting it on and taking it off if you're using it as your main sewing machine. All of that, for the sake of saving money, okay, then maybe you are not long arm worthy. Okay, think about it that way. The other thing that people complain about, or what you should take into consideration, is where you're going to put it. They are big. They're an industrial machine. We have a spot for it.
And you can't move it. They're too big.
They're too big and they're too heavy. Way too heavy. Once you have that sucker assembled, yes, there is some assembly required. An APQS walk you through the whole thing. Their instructions are very clear.
The table we have weighs probably about 550 pounds.
Yeah. And when they brought it to us, they brought it in a transport truck. And the rollers are a solid piece.
Solid piece of metal.
Yeah. You don't slide them together. They're not adjustable. And they're heavy as hell. And it came in 7 boxes for the whole thing.
Yeah, the sewing machine itself, the head's about 50 pounds.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a serious investment. What are you going to pay for it? Well, my machine with the computer. Okay. And that's a separate topic altogether. But I got the computer. It's $41,000. Yes. Well, you can't buy a car for that anymore. But at the time you could.
Yeah, like one thing that you have to consider now, I don't know how it works with the Novus or the other ones, but if you purchase APQS, you're purchasing directly from the manufacturer in the U.S.
Yeah.
Right? And even though you have a dealer here. But what ends up happening is you all, part of your process for purchase is you have to export it or import it from the United States. And so you also have to, on top of the fee of your machine, you have to pay another $1,000 or so to have it shipped across the border.
And you have to pay, you have to pay duty.
And you have to pay your taxes, your Canadian taxes on
and shipping is not cheap because of the heft of it and where it's coming from. I think we paid $700 for shipping. And another thing you want to consider, which we did not realize until we just got the machine together, is we did not have uninterrupted power supply box, which is a special one. We're not talking here about a surge protect bar. We're talking about a big box that is specially designed to keep the fluctuation of the power steady, because it can burn out your computer components if you had a major power surge or something. That little box was $1,000 again, and it was recommended by APQS, and I immediately called up my dealer and said to her, do you have these things? Because I just read about instructions. I never ever thought about it. She says, oh yeah, I've got one of those. She told me where to get one. It was really easy to get. In fact, just to let you know as a side note how good our dealer is, she says, I just got one yesterday. She said, I haven't taken it out of the box yet. I'll drop it off at your place and you can go ahead and order another one, and then I'll just take the one when you get that one in. And so our machine has never not been plugged into this. And, so there's another expense on top of this. This is not a cheap investment, okay? But what I mean when I say, are you long arm worthy? First of all, money, okay, is important. If you can't afford, really can't, or don't want to invest this kind of money in one of these machines, don't get one. Second of all, you need space for it. And it's not just a question of, well, it's only so wide and it's so long. You have to be able to get all the way around it as well. So that's why we have the ongoing argument that...
Well, technically you don't. Tracy said you could butt one end up against a wall. You just can't get around it.
He won't let it go. He wanted me to get the 12 foot.
No, 12 foot, yeah.
We got the 10.
And every time you do a really big quilt on it or something, you say, oh, I don't know if it's going to fit.
But it has. And I've come to the conclusion that I'm not doing, after Barnstar Sampler, that's the biggest quilt I'm going to do, and I'm not doing any more of that size at all. Because there's many reasons why big, huge quilts like that are, and
well,
it's just
so
not
you have a
long arm.
12 foot, right? And you do a big one like that almost is too big for the 10 foot, then you still have that spare room on the other side. So anyway. And the thing is, the difference in price between the 10 foot table and the 12 foot table was $0.
Whatever.
You can also get a 14 foot table, but that was too big.
Let it go. Just, we have what we have. And okay, so there's one of the drawbacks of this type machine. Know how big you want it.
What is that?
What are you looking at?
Oh, I hear noises.
It's the 3D printer.
Oh, it's coming from that side.
Did you just see
your iron's still on? I think your iron's making noises.
Oh, it's probably a squirrel. Like, ever. Jeez, try and carry on a conversation here, and he's off on to have another pill. Okay, so what were we talking about?
APQs.
Buy the biggest one you can.
Yeah.
That you can fit into your space. Okay, you won't regret that. But here's the thing: APQSs are not adjustable. There are some long arms that will go down as much as to 8 feet in size, and then they got, extension pieces, and you can put them on. Here's the problem with extension pieces: they can bend. The APQSs are a solid piece of metal. They're heavy. They do not bend. They will never bend. You could stand on them and bounce up and down,
elephant on
and they will not bend. Okay, so that's what I mean about the quality of it. So sometimes a dealer will try to tell you, oh yeah, this machine, it can go from 8 feet to 10 feet. You just have to put this in. It's not that easy.
Not only that, your quilt can snag on the where the
Yeah.
pieces meet, and that can be a problem.
Now I know I'm going to get comments. Some people are going to tell me that, you know, I think Russ of Quilt Meets World, his long arm is one that I think he has a handy quilter. I'm not sure. And I think his can adjust. And he'll tell me he's never had a problem with that. And maybe not, you know.
Yeah.
But just the chance of that happening. But I guess the bottom line is your budget and your space. And look at it from the point of view as not something that's a convenience. It is something you're really going to use and use a lot. If you get it and you do one quilt on it, that's a lot of money. And trying to sell it, if you decide it's not for you and you're trying to resell it to somebody,
you're not going to get
what you paid for it, for one thing. And the other thing is you got to get it out of your house.
Now that is also the other option. You can look around and buy a used one.
Yes.
Which won't, but be aware of your prices. Like some people that sell a used one want exactly the same amount as the dealer is charging, and that's crazy. You're not gonna do that. But you can maybe find one that's on sale, or there's people that buy them from like estate sales and things like that too, from people, old quilters that die.
And the other thing is this, okay? Some people say, yeah, I'll get a long arm and then I'll do long arm quilting for other people and charge them, and that'll pay for the machine. If you're a really good long arm quilter, that may be the case. But if you have not had any experience, you're not that confident, as I said, even with the computerized system, I think you shouldn't look at it that way unless you are serious about starting a business. But I've had many people say to me when we first got it and they figured out how much we paid for it, they said, well, you could get that back if you long armed for other people. And I go, nope. And to date, I have never long armed for anybody.
It becomes a business, and your hobby then becomes a job.
Yeah.
And then it's not fun anymore.
No. And the hell that I've been through on the learning curve. That's the other thing. There is a very steep learning curve with these. And APQS really only has a manual on how to set it up. They really don't talk about all the ins and outs. They have some videos up on a YouTube channel that they run too, which are good. I highly recommend that you watch them. They have supposed to have some tutorials if you get Quilt Path, which is the computerized program, which again is going to cost you about $13,000. Well, the time I bought it,
$13,000 US.
It was $13,000 US. That's what brought the cost of the long arm was about $23,000 Canadian, and then add to that the computer software and the tablet that it's on, and all that, and that's what brought it up to about $41,000. Okay.
Yeah, the what do you call it? The computerized portion of it. There's an addition to the a new carriage for your attachments to your carriage that is motorized, that moves your machine around. And then there's the software and tablet that comes to
so that
in that package.
It's very expensive. It has a steep learning curve. And there are videos on YouTube on how using it, but they don't seem to have any for the most current versions of the program. They have it for an older version that I have found. And there is APQS does have a booklet for using Quilt Path. It's not very well written.
Now, if you don't get computerized portion of it, like you say, okay, I just want to buy the long arm. You buy the long arm. And you can you have to learn how to free motion quilt, or what you can do is if your long arm has handles on the back, not all of them do.
That sometimes is an option.
Yeah, and you have to you can follow and you have a laser pointer on it. you can follow a pantograph on the back of your
On
machine.
paper pantograph, which you have to buy. Though.
Now, I think, what was it? I believe on the Innova system, one of the benefits of that system is that I think Lydia said that she said that
there's a laser on the front of it.
Yeah, no.
And you see it on your screen, and you can follow it around that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, with it. So, which sounds actually kind of better.
Yeah, actually, that sounds like a pretty good innovation.
That's more, that's more of an innovation, because traditionally most of the machines have a paper pantograph. You do it from the back of the machine.
And Lucy is that way too.
And Lucy was that way, and that's how I did my first quilts before I got the computerized part of the program. Which in some ways, when I think about it now, was a simpler way, and I got
and you had less problems.
And less problems. Yeah. It's an ongoing learning curve. Okay, I can tell you that. So anyways, that's really a whole long discussion we just had, and I didn't want to go into it in that detail, but for Caroline and anybody else, I hope that that's given you some information. Lots of videos on YouTube about these machines. Check them out. Okay, let's change the topic, and let's go to one that came from Lisa Marie. And she says this: I'm not sure if this is up your alley, but I recently thought about getting rivets and eyelets, and it's very confusing on which is better to use for which application, and also what you can use them for. I bought a version of one on Temu, and I've watched a few videos, but I'm still confused. Figuring that I will use it on paper and fabric, and thought that you might have used one when you were a paper crafter. There are different sizes of both eyelets and rivets, and different ways to add them to your projects. And she has a second part to question here, but we'll hold that back. Okay, I'm going to turn this over to Walter, because
all right.
I haven't used these that much. I have used them, but what we're talking about is basically snaps. Okay. If you're making a bag or a purse and you want to make a closure, you might want to put a snap on it, or sometimes clothing have these things. And, well, you take it from there.
Okay, rivets, as far as I know, I'll give you jeans for an example. There are rivets on jeans. If you look at the strength points that you need to make a seam stronger, you could put a rivet on the corner of your pocket. And if you look at any pair of jeans, there's probably a rivet on them. Add the strong points around the corners of the pockets and stuff like that. And that's just an added embellishment to clothing to make a point strong, to add a rivet. Now, I don't know what way you would do it for crafting. I mean, it may just be used as an embellishment of some sort. And what's the other thing?
And well, the snaps.
No, she's not talking about snaps. She's talking about rivets and eyelets.
Eyelets
Put a hole in your fabric, right? So it's a, what do you call it? A supported hole, right? So your eyelet would be a ring of metal, usually, or it can be plastic or whatever, and it's to support a hole. So if you're making a jacket or something like that, you may put an eyelet in there and have a drawstring come through, right? So that's what eyelets are used in clothing.
Now, what about how you put them on? There's different ways to do it.
Yeah, you'll have
manual, and there's a machine.
Yeah, you'll have you have to have a press of some sort to put the eyelet together. They'll sell them on Amazon. You can get it like there's various kinds of presses. You'll have to look at them.
The most simple of the presses for eyelets is a little steel bar that comes down to a dull point, and you have a little hammer, and you put it on like a cutting mat, and you bang it, and it spreads it out so it gathers. Patches.
You'll have to. You can do it with a hammer and one of those tools. You can do that with a rivet too.
Then you can go up a level, and you have a hand one, which looks like a pair of pliers. And basically, you set the eyelet or the rivet in the jaws of this, and you squeeze it, and that puts it together. Then you can go up one step higher, and you'll have ones that are on a stand, and they line up, and you pull down the handle on the stand, and it.
Yeah, but for each size of rivet and each size of eyelet, you need a different die for each of those that are used in either the hand press or the
for the size,
for the
depending, 'cause they
size,
come in different sizes. The
yeah.
rivets and the eyelets come in different sizes.
Yeah, and you need tools for using with a hammer too for the different sizes as well.
And depending on what you're going through, you may need something a little heavier duty to go through the fabric or to cut the hole with it. So, and that's, so where do you use them? Well, in paper crafting, as a paper crafter, I did use eyelets and I did use rivets, mainly for embellishment purposes. Sometimes when I was making tags, for example, I would use an eyelet up, at the top of the tag, so when you strung your ribbon or whatever through, it reinforced the hole, wouldn't rip through the paper. In garment making, I mean, I don't use those things for quilting.
I've rarely used them in garment making,
but you might use them in bag making, in cases like that too. So there are various uses for them.
What you can do is do a search on YouTube for eyelets and rivets or whatever you're using, and view videos on that, and you get a good idea of what to do with them.
Yeah. So. And they're fairly inexpensive for that. Once you get, the tool might be a little bit more money, but even it's not.
Yeah, just be careful. Sometimes the stuff that's sold on Amazon is in poor quality. So you may get poor quality items. You probably, if you could find a leather shop around or something like that, they usually have a good supply of that kind of stuff, or a sewing store.
And she bought one, she said, on Temu, and
it might be good quality.
It might be, you might not know. I mean, I have bought things from Temu and I have been pleasantly surprised by the quality of what I bought, because you don't assume you're going to get good quality because the prices on Temu on a lot of things are ridiculously low.
See, I bought some snaps on Amazon for a coat that I made, and I had nothing but trouble with them because they would not.
Did you buy those on Temu?
I ruined more. No, they were on Amazon. I ruined more than I was able to get.
Well, maybe you just didn't know what you're doing.
No, it was fine. It's just that it was, and if you looked at the reviews on Amazon, there were a lot of people that were complaining about them.
Why'd you buy it?
Well, because I didn't know where else to buy them. And then later on, I bought some other ones from a leather store in Toronto that I bought online, and they were much better quality.
And you want to make sure when you're getting into that leather harness of yours that those things are good quality so they don't pull off. Yeah. But anyways, now she also asked, she says, also, how about different interfacings? Facings, lightweight, medium, heavy. When to use them or use iron-on adhesive instead? I get so confused with all of them. Which one's used for what outcome? Well, basically, it depends on the fabric or the material you're using.
Yeah. Actually, if you go online to any of the manufacturers that make interfacing, HTC or Pellon, they usually have a guide on the online, and they describe each of the interfacings and what they're used for, right? Like you may use a woven interfacing for woven fabrics like cotton. You may use what do you call a non-woven interfacing for jersey fabrics and stuff like that. A lot of the interfaces are interchangeable. Depends on what you like to use.
It also, the purpose of using interface is to give your fabric stability.
Yeah.
So when Walter said you use a non-woven on something like jersey stretches.
And your interfacing stretches along with it. But what you would do is you would, let's say if you're making a shirt or something with jersey, you use interfacing on it to keep it from stretching too much. And it makes it stiff, makes it stable. Like if I do these collars to these shirts, I use Pellon. I use either Pellon SF101 for the interfacing to make the collar stiff, or I'll use a product called Sewer's Dream. And it's a lightweight interfacing. I think Pellon makes another brand, another kind. If you look at their table, they'll say ideal for cuffs or shirts, collars or stuff. on 2 or 3 of their different interfacings, and you can choose the one that you want. You try it out. If you like that one, use that one.
Now, she also, and this I'm confused what she's asking here, when to use them or to use iron-on adhesives instead.
Well, the interfacings I buy are iron-on interfacings. You can also buy ones that are just sewn in.
Yeah, I guess that must be what she's saying, because use iron-on adhesives instead of what? When to use
well,
them?
Why would you use an adhesive? You would use an adhesive to stick stuff together.
Yeah.
But interfacings aren't necessarily made to stick stuff together.
Not all are fusible.
Or occasionally there's some that are fusible on both sides. So yeah, you can stick stuff together that way. But most that I'm aware of are only fusible on one side. So you stick it to your fabric, and then like with the collar, I stick a piece on either side of the collar and sew the collar together.
Now, the kind of interfacing you might use that's sticky on both sides is for applique.
Yeah.
Like Steamacine. Steamacine 2 is sticky on both sides.
But it's an adhesive.
But it's an adhesive. Yeah. But it does give stability to, well, it gives a little bit because but basically it's so you can stick 2 pieces of fabric together. Like, and then that holds your applique in place, and then you do your stitching, blanket stitch or running stitch or whatever, all the way around the outside with it. And that's for like what they call raw edge applique.
But a lot of times, if you buy a shirt pattern, they will say in the shirt pattern, use like a medium weight or a lightweight interfacing for your collars, or so you would have to look up a lightweight interfacing, and you may go to a shop and say, look, I'm making a shirt, what interfacings do you recommend? Right? It's sort of as an as needed basis, and there's tons of interfacings, but I haven't used all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, there are
and that's where it gets confusing.
There's different ones that you need a heavier one for suits. You may get confused at which interfacing to use, but a lot of it is as a need to know basis. If you're making a bag, a lot of times they'll have a guide as to which interfacings to use or whatever, and some are interchangeable. So
you just have to do some research and find out what people are using. And YouTube is a good place for that.
And the more you use them and the more you get used to using them, you begin to understand how they work.
Yeah. Okay, so from Cheryl Mulder, a topic suggestion from myself as I've been cleaning and decluttering in preparation for a move. Magazine, books, or single patterns. Do you have a favorite book that you have kept? I find myself sentimentally holding on to my very first quilt book from 1980 something. I might not use it again and the directions are so out of date. Are you drawn to certain magazine series for the content or simply the eye candy and inspiration? Do you find yourself following particular pattern designers for a time, changing designers as your skills and interests grow and change? Not sure if these are enough questions to address as a series or in 2 minutes, laugh out loud, or even tackle with friends on the social review. I'll be interested to hear all their thoughts. Okay, a lot of questions happening here. So basically we're talking about sources of information. And thanks to the internet, sources of information have changed. Back when I first started quilting, I did consult YouTube, but I did buy some books, and I bought patterns and things like that, and magazines. And I have thrown a lot of them away. Why? Because everything's at your fingertips on the internet. You want to find a pattern, you want to see what to do with something, you just go to the internet and you can get it, save it to your computer, print it off, whatever. So I don't have any favorite books I go back and forth to. Now, I do have one very expensive book I bought, and it is called the Encyclopedia of Quilt Patterns, or not quilt patterns, blocks. It's by Barbara Breckman, I think is her name. And this lady took a mammoth task years ago and started indexing all the different types of quilting patterns, block patterns. And she researched the time period for them, the name of them, and she's cross-referenced them in the book. And I thought this would be an excellent thing to have when I first got into quilting. I paid a lot of money for it. I even bought a I have EQ8 electric quilt, which helps you, design quilts and things like that. And there was an add-on for it that goes with that book. Have I used it? Nope. Nope. And until right now, I'd forgotten all about it that I had it. Um, it's a great guide. I got it originally because I thought I was just starting in quilting and that, and this would be a great reference for making blocks. I found out though, really all it is a classification. It doesn't tell you how to make the blocks. So that's a problem. And I think it was about $60 for the book, I think. Something like that. So it was not a cheap book. It's an encyclopedia of patterns. However, if you were somebody that was interested in the history of quilts and quilt blocks and things like that, and you inherited or picked up, maybe some people like to collect old quilts, it's a great book for consulting what the blocks are and what they were called that are in it. So yeah, it depends on what you want. But as for patterns and things like that, I used to buy a lot of patterns. I have so many bloody patterns. I've not done them all. I was a pattern junkie. Oh, I like that one. I'll buy that. Oh, I like that one. And then I started doing that on the internet too, collecting them. Better off collecting them from the internet. Now, I love a free pattern. Okay. So if I see something that's a commercial pattern, I will look for that pattern and see if I can get it for free. If I really, really, really want it, I will pay the money for it. But if it's something I thought, yeah, it caught my eye, I wonder if I can get a freebie, and then I take it, put it in a directory on my computer, and then promptly forget it's there and never look at it again. So, yeah. In this day and age, personally, my philosophy about books, this is sacrilege, I know, and especially sacrilege when it comes from someone like me who has a degree in English literature and taught English for years. I don't buy books. If it's not in electronic format, I don't buy it. I read off a Kobo. Okay, that's the Canadian version of a Kindle. Okay, I love my electronic book. Yeah, I know a lot of people say they like to be able to feel and touch. Or in the case of patterns, they want a physical pattern in their hand because they don't like reading off their computer. Well, I agree with you. I don't like reading my instructions off the computer, but I can print them. So that's what I do with it. So really, think of it in your own stash. How many magazines that are related to quilting or sewing do you own, and do you have somewhere on a shelf? Do you know what's in those anymore? Can you even find them? What's your storage method? Unless you're a librarian and you've got an index or a database or something like that, you probably opened up that magazine maybe once. Maybe you did a pattern out of that magazine and then you filed it back on a shelf and you've promptly forgotten all about it. And I have a few of those laying around too. So yeah, I prefer everything electronic. I prefer it digital. And that's really how I
tend to do all my reference online. I do have some sewing books, but I don't look at them very often. I usually look for them online, and then I might go to this.
Yeah. Well, there is that too. In some cases, if there's a book you want but it's expensive too, that has to do with quilting and that, or it's a book that might be they're not printing it anymore, so you're looking for it for secondhand or something like that, then that might be, where you can use the internet to get the actual
if you have a nostalgic book that you have hanging around, like you just want to keep it,
then keep it. Just keep it. She says, are you drawn to a certain magazine series for the content or simply the eye candy inspiration? There wasn't really a specific magazine I liked, but I like going to the newsstand in a bookstore and looking at the quilting magazines, American Patchwork and Quilting. And they still make them. They're still there. And I'd leaf through them. But magazines are expensive. I mean, buying a magazine for 50 cents hasn't happened since the 1940s. Like you're talking $12, $15 for a magazine. So what I would do is I'd stand there and I'd leaf through it and I'd look, okay, that one I like, that pattern. I might make that. If there were 3 patterns I really liked, I would consider buying the magazine. If there was only one, I'm not spending that kind of money. on that pattern.
You'd be better off looking for a similar pattern
And that's what I was just going to
online
say.
and just buying the pattern.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, for that. So, yeah. But I mean, it's whatever you're comfortable with. And she also mentions about them being outdated. Yep. If you've got some quilting patterns from the 1980s or even the early 90s or something like that, there's probably better ways to do that same pattern now, other techniques. And specialty devices like rulers. You know, for example, half square triangles, traditional way of making half square triangles, two pieces of fabric, right sides together, diagonal line, 1/4 inch seam on either side, slice it, dice it, and there you go. Okay. And I still make my HSTs that way. But when it comes to trimming them up, I make them oversized, which helps if you got something that's 1/8 of an inch as well. And I've got a ruler that all I do is, before I even open them up and press them, after they've been sewn together, I lay the a certain marking on the ruler on top of the seam line and trim it, and it comes out perfect size that I want. That's a much more modern method. That in the 1980s, that ruler probably did. I know that ruler didn't exist, and there's different ones like that, and those different company makes them. So you know, yes, they're constantly innovating. They're constantly changing things. So, you know, just because it's the tried and true way, there may be modern things that, you know, you can do now, but you'll never know if you're still going back to the same old book. However, having said that, some of the old techniques are still the tried and true ones, and it's good to have a reference to them, especially if you don't do it every day, if you're not using that particular technique. So, you know, it's really up to you. Do you find yourself following particular pattern designers for a time? Yes, I do. Changing designers as your skills and interests grow and change? Yes, I do. I make much more complex quilts now than I did when I first started. And certain designers are challenging, especially when you start getting into ones that are doing things like Judy Neiman, what's her name? You know, you got one of her patterns. It's a paper piecing one, but
oh no, you're talking about
what am I talking about? I'm talking about collage quilting, but
oh no, I'm talking what's her DeJong?
Oh yeah, that's what you got.
Yeah.
That's a paper pieced one.
Yeah.
But again, that's a fairly complex one that he's got. Too.
I haven't done it yet.
So yeah. And even when you're doing something like foundation paper piecing, for years people did it one way. Now there's about 3 different ways out there to do it that, depending on your style, are easier. Yeah, so things change all the time, and designers are always coming up with new techniques and things. So yeah, internet's your best way to go for that kind of stuff, because you usually find a tutorial on YouTube for it too. Anyways, I hope that answers the questions there.
Yeah, so the problem is a lot of people that quilt are older, and people are set in their ways. So they think still in books.
Yeah.
Right. What books, what magazines do I go to? Whereas we're pretty modern, and everything's I was a computer programmer, so for me, all my resources are on computer.
Yeah,
that's what I like to do. And for patterns, there are certain sites I go to for patterns for which I haven't bought a new pattern in a while. But for men's patterns, you're somewhat limited as to what you can get. So, but there are more men's patterns out there, but a lot of them are online. So,
yeah. So it's really what floats your boat on that kind of thing. Okay. Hiccups. So some quickie comments. This one comes from Heidi. Yeah, if you remember, this comment she's making is generated from the when I showed you that I bought an air purifier for down in here, because I was concerned about microscopic particulate that comes from my 3D printers in here. And it does work. I'm not coughing.
Yeah, you used to cough a lot.
Yep. As soon as I come down here, start up my printers, I'd start to cough. Now, Nope. And I just had printer was going back behind us. My air purifier's off camera here. It's working like a charm. But Heidi wrote this: when you do an embroidery project, the polyester thread can also shred microparticles. Even the cotton fabric sheds small fibers, not plastics, but I'm sure they don't make your lungs happy. Well, you want to know something? I didn't think about that. But the other reason why I'm not coughing as much is because, yes, your thread gives off lint, small little fibers. And I know that my air purifier is working because one day I had all 4 3D printers going, and I was using the embroidery machine too and doing very, very detailed and heavy duty embroidery on all day. There's a set of numbers on the front of this that tell you your air quality. Usually, and right now, it's sitting at 4, and that's good. It jumped to 16 when I was using the embroidery machine and all 4 printers. So it wasn't just the printers. When I have all 4 printers going, the number usually doesn't go any higher than 6. I got the embroidery machine going at the same time. Suddenly, it jumped up 10 more points on that. So yes, there are particles in the air, and I highly recommend, and I've heard somebody else talk about this, and I was skeptical. They have in their sewing room one of these air purifiers, and you can get them from Amazon. And I did a thing about which one I have, so just go back to some of my videos from the last couple of weeks.
Get one in my room.
Yeah, I really sold on the air purifier, but I thought that was interesting. I had not thought about, and you know, if you think about it, aren't our sewing rooms usually the dustiest room in our house? Well, part of the reason maybe you don't clean it out regularly is maybe other parts of your house. But there always seems to be dust. Well, that's stuff coming off our threads and our fabrics, little microfibers. So, you know, who knows? I may have, in the time that I've been quilting, have breathed in a whole quilt. I have my you know, if they ever took out my lungs, they'd see them all in patchwork. Next question. Suggestion. Okay, this is a suggestion comes from somebody said, make some cool templates with your 3D printer. Yeah, no. This isn't the first person who's asked that. You would think with a 3D printer, that would be really easy to do. Well, first of all, you have to know how to use AutoCAD type programs to design things. Okay. Second of all, and I don't. Second of all, you're cutting soft, or you're melting soft plastic to make the template. It's not going to protect your rotary cutter from gouging into it. I actually have made one before and tried it. Wrecked it within the first 3 seconds. The edge of the rotary cutter went into it.
Yeah, because the plastic you use is fairly soft.
Yeah.
And
if you think about what templates are made out of, commercially made templates,
you can't make those.
No, those are acrylic, and those are laser cut. Or they're cut by a CNC machine manufacturers.
Yeah, that you're obviously somebody that doesn't have a 3D printer, because you would know that you wouldn't be able to do
I mean, it sounds like a really great idea, and it is, but not with the material that goes through a 3D printer. It's not enough to be able to do it. Now, mind you, you could make templates if all you were going to use them for is to trace around them, like you made one of a duck. And, you know, you traced around and then you took a pair of scissors to cut that out or whatever. Okay, that would work because you're not cutting into it.
What about something for like using on the quilting machine? Like a template for that, for, you know, for ruler quilting?
Well, you might be able to. You'd have to make them thick enough for that. You might be able to, because I never tried it. Because you're not cutting into it. So you probably could. But then you have to think to yourself, is it worth it? Is it worth the kind of, because these things just aren't made in 5 minutes. Is it worth
doing the effort to do that, or is it worth just going out and buying one?
And the other thing too, is those rulers that have markings on them.
Yeah.
And they're see-through.
Yeah. So, like, I mean,
you can't make them see through.
I mean, you might be able to make a unique one.
Yeah.
On there, but that you can't get in the store. But if you're just getting ones that are you like store bought ones are acrylic. They're probably much better quality to use. And
it's a neat idea, but the technology isn't quite there with the material that goes through them. Now, maybe someday they'll create a filament that is an acrylic filament, and it'll come out and it'll be as hard. And there are some filaments that are infused with metal, and with carbon and things like that. Problem is they're not see-through, and they're expensive.
And
you need a machine that can handle that kind of stuff. And even
the stuff that they call clear that you can
get not clear.
It's not clear.
It's not clean, opaque. So yeah, it's opaque. I know. I tried. But what else is there? I have fabric that was given to me by my friend's mom that passed away, and some unfinished quilt tops. I try to purchase staple colors on sale that you always need. Lately, though, working on scrap quilts. I finished a few of the quilt tops, 5 of them. One of them was a cat quilt, 4 small pickering. I've been trimming and making my own charm packs and layer cakes. Okay, the last part of this is basically, she was talking here a little bit all over the place in this one, but she's talking about scraps and using them to make scrap quilts, which is one use. But you can also use them to make, like she said, blankets or that for animal shelters, for in, their little compound, their little cage and that. And lots of people do that with their scraps. You can use your scraps to stuff something like that as well. I used to save every little scrap, and I had quite a collection, vats of these things. And I know this is going to make some people puke when I say it. I put them all in a big green garbage bag and threw them out. I hadn't touched them. They were taking up space. Now, no, if I don't have a scrap that's a minimum size scrap of fabric I'll keep is one that I can cut out about a 5-inch square from. If it's much smaller than that, I may or may not keep it. I might keep it if it's, to make 2.5-inch HSTs or something like that. And I do have a pile of them already pre-cut, and I've got them all laid out in little boxes, all very neat. And guess what? You can sit on a shelf and you pull them out. I don't know. So yes, I waste fabric. And like I said earlier, Walter gave me all this stuff from his shirts and that, and he's got them all in nice little bags, all the same ones together and everything like that. I just left them in the bags, threw them in a drawer.
Well, maybe I take them and cut squares out of them and make them into something.
Yeah, maybe, but you probably won't.
I probably won't.
So, yeah. That's the thing. We always have these good intentions that we think we're going to do these things, but then when we get down to it, we're bored. I mean, I have an AccuQuilt machine that I could put all these scraps through in no time and make those. And I've done that, and I get bored very quickly with that. What I need is servants. You, intern, cut me squares. The idea, though, here of making your own charm packs and layer cakes is a great idea, and I have sort of done that, and I even thought about going through my scraps and at Christmas time making up these different charm packs of all these, like curated, I'd call them curated kind of thing, and giving them to actually to the ladies that work at the quilt store I go to all the time as part of a Christmas gift. But then I thought better of it, and the reason was this. I thought, well, okay, they work in a quilt store. They can get their hands on charm packs that are more professionally cut, for one thing. And, these are scraps. They're not going to match, and just if there was enough in there to make a full charm pack of all the same fabric, then I wouldn't have cut it up into smaller pieces because it would have been a decent piece for it. But anyways, it's an idea. For those of you that get bored one day, go ahead and cut. I know some people like doing that. And that's fine. That floats your boat. Okay, it says, is it just me, or have you also noticed that creative Kiwis' directions to their patterns are getting worse? Just made the Christmas bowl and some of her steps are backwards. Yes. Now, not so much with Creative Kiwi, but I noticed this recently with Sweet Pea Designs. So much so that I wrote to them and they never acknowledged me.
Whereas now someone wrote you back. I'm not sure if it was Sweet Pea that said that their patterns are fully tested.
Oh yeah, I did get one. They're fully tested all the time. Well, they're not doing a good job. I haven't noticed it with Creative Kiwi, but it's definitely a possibility. And I think the problem here is quality control. Creative Kiwi and Sweet Pea Designs tend to be more family owned and operated businesses, and they probably can't keep up with doing as being as thorough as they should be. Also, I think it just comes down to the fact that so many of the instructions in these patterns are the same. So if I know this is what I would do, I've already got the instructions for this pattern, this section, this section, this section. I can just cut and paste into the new pattern because it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes that's where the problems come, because there is a slight variation and you don't catch it.
Yeah, like there's one pattern in one of those ones that you were doing, and you realize that the pattern started referring to something that wasn't in the pattern. So it looked like they had copied it from somewhere else.
Yeah. But in the case of Sweet Pea, they would not admit to that.
Mm-hmm.
I explained that right to them, and I explained it nicely. And I said, I'm an experienced, in the hoop machine embroidery person. So I figured it out. But if it was somebody brand new to doing something like that, it might turn them right off. So yeah, but yes, to this person, Sherry, I have noticed that. And it's just like everything in the world, isn't it? People don't proofread.
And they don't seem to care.
No, and they don't seem to care. This is where companies really need to employ what's called a technical writer. Because the job of a technical writer is to go through patterns and instructions to make sure they're written clearly and correctly. But they cost money, and unless you have somebody already on your staff who's a trained technical writer.
Nowadays, also when people are writing something because they're writing on a computer, a lot of times there's autocorrect on, and as we all know, autocorrect doesn't always do a good job.
Yeah. Now, next question. We're running a little late here on this, so last two. Do you have to change any hoop settings on the machine when you use the dime magnetic hoop? I'm wondering because I don't use my magnetic hoop hardly at all, but in this case, it could be very useful for some projects such as you're doing. Okay, I have a love-hate relationship with the dime magnetic hoop. It is not everything they said it was going to be, and it costs a lot of money. I didn't buy it, Walter did.
He's used it more than I have.
Yeah.
So.
I have found uses for it, and it has worked for those uses well. However, they seem to think that you can take a quilt and sandwich it between this on the magnetic hoop and you'll never have a problem. No, you will have a problem. Those magnets say keep thread. Don't get your hands near them. It'll pinch off your fingers. They are strong, not that strong. And yeah, they will pop. If there's a lot, like if you've got a fluffy quilt under there and you're trying to quilt it on an embroidery machine, well, first of all, don't even try that, but I'm not going there. I know some of you do that and you love it and you don't have any problem, and I say great for you. But yeah.
Yeah, the other thing you got to be aware of with dime, when you buy a dime hoop, is that if you buy it and you don't like it, you cannot take it back.
And they also have little add-ons to make your life even easier. They shouldn't have had any, and those add-ons are to avoid the problems I just mentioned with the hoop. And apparently they don't really work that well. That is a company I will not deal with, Dime, and I think they've been bought out. I think they're now by OESD.
Yeah, I believe they are. Yeah.
With it, but no, I was never impressed with them one way or the other.
I spent a lot of money for that hoop. I had to wait a long time for the hoop. I got it. I used it on one project and I was disappointed.
And talking about problems in embroidery patterns, other companies, they had a freebie. Actually, if you look right behind me, behind Walter's head, you see a long one there. It looks like a series of doors. That was sort of a block of the month. It was a freebie they were doing. And so I followed it. And half of those ones that are up there had mistakes in them. I corrected the mistake. It was in the instructions. They were just slapped off. Some of them were so badly written that I basically had to rewrite the pattern myself to figure out what to do with it. So yeah, and that's a direct reflection on their quality control, but they don't exist anymore. So, okay, last question. This is about entering quilts into a competition. Maureen wrote this. Maureen lives in Australia. You have probably, if you've watched Idiot Quilter, you've seen some of her creations, her award-winning ones. She is a brilliant quilt maker. Her appliques are to die for, and the whole bit. And she has won multiple prizes for her quilts. And I was talking about entering in the little spring fair that was here that I got second prize. Yeah, I'm an award-winning quilt maker. Thank you very much. But how, well, no other words for it, Mickey Mouse it was. And she says, okay, I have to share this story with you. She says, after listening to your collection of your quilt, collection of your quilt story, meaning my picking it up, I had 2 quilts entered in the Sydney Royal Easter Show. They both won prizes, one of them best in quilting. We had set times to collect our quilts, and to say it was a zoo and poorly organized is an understatement. People were collecting all handicrafts, art photos, cakes, preserves, etc., all from the same collection point. Finally came to the head of the queue and handed in my slip. I was then passed to a steward, who then passed me to another, and was walked over to the quilts. I could have taken any of them. So I picked up my quilts, went back to the queue again to pick up the ribbons. I was tired by this time, back and knee issues, from standing, so didn't look at the ribbons. Just went back to the car and drove home, 1 hour and 15 minutes. Once home, I showed the ribbons to my husband. Guess what? I was given the wrong ribbon. Mine said best cake in the show. After a phone call, I discovered that the person who had won best cake was irate. I thought it was hilarious, as I must be the world's worst cake maker. Anyway, I returned the ribbon and got my big best in show ribbon, and I hope the cake maker is happy now. Yeah, I didn't have that problem, but it was a smaller type of show too. But yeah, it's, who knows how it's organized. Now, having said that, next week I said that we'll be showing what we see and everything at the Canadian Quilt Show. I've been to a couple of Canadian quilt shows. There's mayhem and chaos. They are not that well organized, at least the 2 we've been to before. And you pay big bucks to go in and see the quilts, for one thing, for this. And I can only imagine what it's like for people who are submitting a quilt for judging in it too. I wonder how many people have lost a quilt. And I have heard stories on YouTube of people never seeing their quilt again, and never getting there, or never showed up, or never got returned, or whatever. So yeah, I can see that problem. Now, okay, to be fair, a lot of these things are done by volunteers, and the bigger the show, the more chances there can be of problems and stuff like that. But I thought that was an interesting story. So I didn't really go through anything like that to pick it up. She wasn't sure where they were. Walter spotted it. It was right there when we came in.
Yeah, I saw it where it was.
Yeah, so, but anyways. Okay, so this is a long one today. But, and I didn't think we'd have much to talk about. Yeah, but of course Walter had to go on and on for about the long.
Yeah, well, anyway.
Yeah. So considering that he's only ever used it once.
Yeah, well.
Try to encourage him
to use it, but I gotta keep meaning to do lots of things. So
yeah, I know.
I don't have enough hours in the day.
I don't know. Well, you would have if you got out of bed before lunch.
I was up early today.
Yeah, whatever. Okay, so tune in on Sunday for Stephen and Walter Live. We're going to talk about current affairs, or why the world is a mad place to live in right now. Yes, it may get a little political on there, but whatever. That's the way we roll. So have a good week or weekend, and we'll see you next week or sooner. Bye for now.
Bye for now.